Time I Accidentally Learned Something by Kimberly Gilmore. As a teacher, I also have a passion for learning. I love the feeling of getting new information and then putting it to use, whether it be in my classroom or in my daily life. Because of this, I try to attend as many teaching conferences with as many speakers as I can, in the hopes that I can collaborate all the information and use their knowledge and know-how in my classroom. According to the short article, Lesson Learned, The 5 Moments of Need, Conrad Gottfredson identified what he called the 5 moments of need, that according to Gottfredson, these provide a framework for helping learners become and remain competent in their individual and collective work. The moments he is referring to are new, more, apply, solve, and change. I actually ran across this article on accident while looking for pictures and could really relate to it because of what we are now studying. I also felt this related fairly closely to the cognitism, which is one of the main theories used in my preschool classroom. New is new information. More is adding on to information already known. Apply is applying what you learned. Solve is when problems arise and you find ways through them. And change is when you find a new way of doing things after you have already adopted one way. These 5 moments of need relate very strongly to some of the theories that we have studied, as well as go along with how I teach. So I felt the article was relevant to bring into my informative video. I also did a little more research for my own curiosity and included the information to the article in my references. Now coming back to my own learning moment, which is a bit different than how I teach, but we will bring that back in a bit when I go over how my learning experience could have been different. It actually took place at a conference at Illinois State University campus. After I had been teaching for 2 years, I was lucky enough to get to see Grace Dearborn and learned so much from her, but I had my own aha moment when I realized that everything she was teaching us to use in our classroom, she was also using on us. Halfway through our session, I looked at my teaching aide and said, "Kathy, do you realize that everything she's talking about on how to manage a classroom, she is also using to manage us adults?" Honestly, at this moment, I realized if it can work on a bunch of adults, then it can absolutely work on our children. So I started to pay a lot closer attention, take more notes, and plan ahead on how Kathy and I were going to incorporate them into our classroom since they clearly worked on us adults. According to our textbook, behaviorism seems to be the most fitting of theories that she used on us as well as was teaching us that day. We might think of operant behavior as learning by doing, and in fact, much learning occurs when we perform the behaviors. Some examples of what Grace Dearborn used on us while also teaching us to use them were operant conditioning. She had a song that when we heard it, we needed to come back to our seats. The positive reinforcement of following such rules were that we would get out early if we were able to listen and make things run more smoothly. She also had chimes that when she rang them, we were to be silent after discussions. She had transition music that she briefed us on before the seminar so that when we heard it, we knew where to go and what to do. Positive reinforcements involve presenting a stimulus or adding something to a situation, following a response, which increases the likelihood of that response recurring in that situation. Page 96 of Shook's. She also used chocolate snacks and candy for this as well. Cell phones were not allowed to be on the table or on our lap, but instead of an immediate punishment, she would give us an option. Put it away for the rest of the class, or you may read your message. This was an example of a negative reinforcement, although she was very careful with this type of reinforcement and only used it as a last resort. Some stimuli that often function as negative reinforcements are bright lights, loud noises, alarms, criticism, annoying people, and low grades. Shunks, page 96. Grace Dearborn really pushed choices at her seminar for us because she also wanted us to take it back to our lives. In her book, Yeah, but What About This Kid? Tier 3 behavior interventions that work, she talks about interventions that implemented in even the toughest schools actually do work. Grace mentions 3 tiers, which are mostly choices that the child/person can make. According to the article, Compassion-Based Strategies for Managing Classroom Behavior, written by Ki Sung, Dearborn said that in the moments of escalation with students, often the best strategy is to offer a few alternative choices to the behavior a child is showing and then walk away. Sometimes a small nudge is enough to redirect the behavior, and teens especially may not follow the teacher's directions if she hovers. Dearborn calls this drive-by discipline. Dearborn demonstrated this with examples such as setting up scenarios within our groups where some of us acted as though we were the kids in trouble and some of us were the authority figures. When we were the kids, we were to be as irrational as possible so as to cause the authority figure to find non-confrontational ways, but stern ways to handle the situation. Grace also used this within our session by, in a non-confrontational but stern way, handling rude adults. Yes, there were some, sadly. The strengths of what Dearborn teaches, I feel, is it can actually work across the board, children, adolescents, and adults. What I feel may be the drawback is once you catch on to the choices and tiers, there may be more of a chance of resistance, since the goal is to be non-confrontational, as well as also trying not to escalate the situation. I feel that if Grace Dearborn would have used a different theory, such as cognitive, she would have had to do a little bit more research on us to get to know our brains, how they individually function, and how we learn and process information. But since it was a one-day seminar, that was not possible for her. Although she mentions and uses cognitive psychology as well, she was not able to really implement it during the session, but did talk about how we can use it in our classrooms and with our students. The knowledge can be represented in different ways, suggests that the teacher should vary instruction depending on the learner's developmental level. Shunk, page 328. This ties back to the 5 Moments of Need by Conrad Gottfredson, because this theory is considered cognitive as opposed to the behaviorism that Grace used on us. Overall, I think teachers use a variety of theories on a daily basis depending on how our students learn and react. Grace Dearborn was teaching us by involving us in the lessons. She was teaching behaviorism by using behaviorism. I feel that had she used any other form, it may not have sunk in as well as it did, at least for me. But that actually is the amazing thing about learning, is there are all different types of ways to match all the ways that people learn.